In this segment, we are going to discuss the response of the colonists to what they perceived as British aggression. We will look at two Continental Congresses and a gradual coming together of disparate colonies for mutual protection. We will also discuss the first shot of the Revolution, heard round the world, and how it led to the Second Amendment to the Constitution. One of the key challenges facing the American colonies in the lead-up to the Revolution was the vast geographical distance separating them. This made communication and coordination difficult. Imagine for a moment the colonists in Massachusetts attempting to understand the experiences and grievances of those in Georgia, a significant distance to bridge even by modern standards. In response to this obstacle, a crucial innovation emerged: the Committees of Correspondence. These committees, established by the colonial assemblies, including, initially, the one in Massachusetts, served as communication channels. Their primary function was to exchange letters with their counterparts in other colonies. Through this written dialogue, the colonists aimed to develop a unified response to what they perceived as British oppression. However, the slow and laborious nature of written communication soon proved insufficient. The colonists needed a more direct and immediate form of collaboration. Thus, the idea of a Congress, the First Continental Congress, materialized. Convened in Philadelphia in 1774, this gathering marked a significant step towards a more unified colonial resistance. As you will often find in American history, even during the early stages of rebellion, there weren't always monolithic viewpoints. The First Continental Congress was no exception. Within this assembly, two distinct perspectives emerged. On one side were the radicals, individuals like John Adams and Samuel Adams, who advocated for complete independence from Britain. On the other hand, the conservatives argued for reconciliation with Parliament and a continued association with the British Empire. The concept of complete separation from the Crown was, for them, an extreme and undesirable outcome. This inherent tension between these two opposing voices, those seeking independence and those advocating for continued ties with Britain, would become a recurring theme in American politics, shaping the course of the Revolution and beyond. The First Continental Congress became a battleground of perspectives. This internal division within the Assembly led to two distinct responses to British actions. Firstly, the so-called conservatives favored a more moderate approach which manifested in the form of a Declaration of Rights. The radicals, the group lobbying for independence, adopted the Suffolk Resolves, a legitimately revolutionary act. The First Continental Congress produced a document called the Declaration of Rights. This declaration embodied the perspective of the more conservative delegates at the Congress. It articulated a belief that Parliament was overstepping its authority and infringing upon the rights of the colonists. However, within this document lies a crucial distinction. The colonists expressed unwavering loyalty to the king. This reflects a fundamentally different understanding of the British Empire compared to the viewpoint held by Parliament. The American colonists didn't see themselves as subservient to Parliament. Instead, they believed their true allegiance was directly to the king. This idea stemmed from their interpretation of the empire's structure, where they viewed themselves as connected to the crown, not Parliament. The Declaration of Rights contained a plea, underpinned by a perhaps misguided belief that if the king fully understood the actions of Parliament, he would intervene to protect the colonists. History, of course, shows us that this was not the case. The king was fully aware of and supportive of Parliament's actions. Nonetheless, the Declaration of Rights stands as the conservative voice within the Congress, seeking redress from the Crown itself while asserting their rights in the face of perceived parliamentary overreach. In stark contrast to this moderation was the adoption of the Suffolk Resolves. These resolutions originated in Suffolk County, Massachusetts, where Boston is located. In the wake of the coercive acts, also known as the Intolerable Acts, local representatives convened and issued a defiant response. Let's dissect the core elements of their resolutions. Denunciation. The Suffolk Resolves roundly condemned the Intolerable Acts. Boycott. A call to boycott British imports and a refusal to export goods to Britain were central to the resolutions. Disobedience. The legitimacy of the Massachusetts Government Act, which dissolved the Colonial Assembly, was outright rejected. Similarly, the Boston Port Bill, which shut down the port, was deemed unacceptable. Call for action. The colonists were urged to demand the resignation of officials appointed under this new British-imposed government, withhold tax payments, and establish an independent colonial government within Massachusetts. Citizen militias. The resolves advocated for the colonies to raise their own militias. The adoption of the Suffolk Resolves by the wider Continental Congress was a turning point. It signaled that the American colonies, as a collective, would refuse to acknowledge British authority until the intolerable acts were rescinded. The American Revolution was no longer a revolution in ideology. It had become a tangible act of rebellion. The colonies had unequivocally declared their refusal to obey those laws they deemed unjust. Parliament's reaction to the Congress was swift and harsh. They declared the colonial assemblies illegal, effectively dissolving any semblance of local governance. This move essentially created a situation of dual power, the remnants of the colonial assemblies functioning alongside British-appointed officials. In the meantime, American colonists began to train as militias. The pivotal event of April 19, 1775, forever etched in American memory, is often referred to as the shot heard around the world. Here's what happened. Word of a colonial weapons cache in the town of Concord reached British authorities stationed in Boston. Fearing an uprising, General Gage, the royal governor, ordered a force to descend upon Concord and confiscate the weapons. This move was intended to disarm the colonists and thereby stifle any chance of organized rebellion. However, a network of patriot spies and writers, including the now famous Paul Revere, quickly learned of the British plans. Revere's legendary midnight ride became part of a larger coordinated effort to spread the alarm, ensuring the colonists were ready to defend their stockpile. As the British troops marched towards Concord, they encountered colonial militia mustering in Lexington. Tensions escalated, and a now infamous shot of unknown origin sparked the first armed confrontation of the Revolution. The British, trained in traditional European warfare, marched and fought in rigid linear formations. Their tactics emphasized synchronized volleys of musket fire, where one line reloaded while the other discharged their weapons. In contrast, the colonists embraced a guerrilla style of combat, reminiscent of their experiences fighting against Native Americans during King Philip's War. They sought cover behind trees and natural features, using the terrain to ambush British troops. This Indian style of warfare, so foreign to the British, proved devastatingly effective and inflicted heavy losses on the Redcoats. Despite the initial success of the colonists, the British managed to reach Concord and secure the weapons cache before retreating back to Boston. However, the Battle of Lexington and Concord shattered the illusion of British invincibility and instilled a newfound confidence in the colonists' ability to resist. The citizen soldiers, now known as Minutemen due to their rapid response capabilities, emerged as a crucial element in the fight for independence. The events at Lexington and Concord left a lasting mark on the American psyche. Colonists witnessed a powerful central government, the British Parliament, attempting to disarm them, directly threatening their ability to defend themselves against perceived injustices. This experience would profoundly shape the American outlook on government power and individual liberties. When the Bill of Rights was being drafted, this distrust of a strong central government was fresh in the minds of the Founding Fathers. The Second Amendment, originally envisioned as a means to secure the states' rights to maintain militias, was born out of the fear that a new federal government might similarly seek to disarm the populace. The primary intention was to prevent the very scenario the colonists had endured under British rule. For centuries, the Second Amendment was primarily understood within this collective right framework, ensuring states could maintain armed militias. However, in 2010, a Supreme Court decision shifted the interpretation towards an individual's right to gun ownership. Advocacy groups like the NRA promote this perspective, arguing that the right to bear arms is a fundamental, God-given right. It's essential to note that this view is a relatively recent construction and ahistorical with regard to the amendment's original intent. Furthermore, even the Supreme Court ruling acknowledges that the Second Amendment does not confer an unlimited right to gun ownership. It explicitly recognizes the state's right and responsibility to implement regulations and restrictions in the interest of public safety. Please proceed to answer the questions in the assignment on Canvas. If you have any questions, you can post them in the open forum discussion or contact the professor using Canvas email.